In a shocking and disturbing moment, an incident unfolds that no one expected. An old black woman, simply going about her day, is targeted by a racist policeman. In a disgraceful act of cruelty, he pours water over her head, humiliating her in front of onlookers. But what starts as an act of senseless aggression quickly takes a turn. The policeman's confidence begins to crack when the sound of heavy footsteps signals the arrival of someone far more powerful than he ever anticipated. The police chief, the very person who oversees the officers in this precinct, steps into the scene. What happens next is something that could change everything. The officer, once so sure of his position, starts to panic. His actions, now under the scrutiny of his superior, could cost him everything. Will the chief stand up for what's right, or will this be another case of injustice swept under the rug? This shocking encounter raises difficult questions about power, authority, and racism in our communities. Stick around as we dive into the full story and reveal what happens when the truth comes face to face with accountability. The old woman, visibly shaken, stands there, drenched in water, her dignity stripped away in an instant. The crowd around her murmurs, some trying to help, others too afraid to intervene. The policeman, a man who'd worn the badge for years, seems unbothered at first. It's not the first time he's acted with arrogance, but today something feels different. He knows there's a line between right and wrong, and for a brief moment he wonders if he's crossed it. His heart races as the sound of the approaching footsteps grows louder. The police chief, a figure known for his stern demeanor and no-nonsense approach, appears in full uniform. He surveys the scene with a sharp eye, taking in the woman's tear-streaked face and the officer standing frozen. The tension in the air is palpable. The officer's hands begin to tremble, the weight of his actions settling on his shoulders. He tries to hide his panic behind a forced smile, but it's clear he's in trouble. The crowd starts to quiet down, sensing the shift in power. The chief doesn't speak immediately. He only looks at the officer, then at the woman. The silence is thick with unspoken words, and all eyes are on the chief, waiting for what comes next. Will he do the right thing, or will the officer walk away with nothing more than a warning? The moment feels like it could tip either way. The chief's gaze never wavers as he steps closer, his presence commanding attention. The policeman, now visibly sweating, stands stiffly, as if hoping the whole situation will somehow fade away. But it doesn't. The chief's eyes shift to the crowd, who are starting to whisper louder now, murmurs of disbelief and outrage growing as the scene plays out in front of them. Some wonder if this will be another case where nothing changes, where the badge shields a wrongdoer from accountability. Others are cautiously hopeful that the chief will act with the authority needed to restore justice. The woman, still trembling, looks up at the officer. Her face is a mixture of hurt and confusion. She's been through so much in her life, years of struggling to be seen, years of standing strong in the face of adversity. But now, in this moment, she feels powerless. The cold water on her skin is the least of her worries. It's the cruelty in the officer's eyes, the deliberate humiliation that cuts deeper. The weight of history, of racial injustice, feels suffocating in the air. This isn't just about one officer and one woman. It's about a system that's often stacked against people like her, a system that has let this kind of behavior slide for far too long. In the distance, a few of the onlookers pull out their phones, recording the unfolding scene. The officer catches sight of them, and his panic spikes. He knows this moment is different. No longer is it just an isolated incident. The world will see this, and it could destroy him. He tries to steady his breath, but the pressure builds with every passing second. The woman's eyes lock with his for a brief moment. There's a challenge there, a quiet defiance. She won't be ignored this time. The chief takes a long, deliberate breath. He's seen things like this before, minor missteps, small abuses of power, but never in his career has he felt such a sharp divide between right and wrong. There's a decision to be made here, one that could affect not just this officer's future, but the community's trust in the police force. He feels the weight of that responsibility settle heavily on his shoulders. He has the power to change the course of this moment, but it won't be easy. Every choice is fraught with consequences, and the tension between upholding the law and confronting a flawed system looms large. The silence between the chief and the officer feels unbearable, stretching on for what seems like an eternity. The crowd waits, breath held, their eyes darting between the two men. The tension is thick enough to slice through, yet neither speaks. The officer, caught in a whirlwind of panic and guilt, begins to shuffle his feet nervously, his eyes flicking back and forth. He knows his fate rests in the hands of the chief now, and with every second that ticks by, the walls around him seem to close in. The woman, her body trembling, stands motionless, her eyes still locked on the officer. There's a calm in her gaze, a quiet strength that defies the situation. She's seen the world turn a blind eye too many times, but today, something is different. Her faith in justice has been shaken, but the small flicker of hope that remains refuses to be extinguished. She refuses to let this moment slip away unnoticed. She deserves to be heard. In the distance, more sirens are approaching, the sounds of the city blending with a tense atmosphere. The crowd grows larger, some people stepping forward, others retreating, unsure of what will happen next. Every phone camera is now trained on the scene, capturing every second. The world is watching. The chief's face remains stoic, unreadable. He takes a slow step forward, his eyes narrowing as he studies the officer. The weight of his decision is heavy, but he can't turn back now. He knows whatever happens next will not just impact this moment, but the reputation of the entire police force. The question is, what side will he stand on? The officer's hands are shaking now, his breath shallow, his mind racing. He's only ever been confronted by his superior a few times, and each one of those moments felt worlds apart from this. There's no escaping this now. He can't take back what he did. He can't undo the hurt he caused. But it's the chief's next words that will decide everything, the turning point that could either lead to redemption or more broken promises. The entire crowd is frozen, waiting, hanging on the edge of anticipation. Every set of eyes is locked onto the chief, wondering if he'll have the courage to stand for what's right. Just as the chief opens his mouth to speak, something unexpected happens. A loud crash cuts through the tense silence, followed by the screech of tires. The crowd parts quickly as a black SUV barrels into the scene, coming to a halt just inches from where the officer and the woman stand. The door swings open, and two men step out, both wearing expensive suits and a level of confidence that immediately grabs attention. The officer's face goes pale when he recognizes one of the men, a local politician with ties to the police force, a man known for his influence and wealth. The politician's eyes lock onto the officer's, and for the briefest of moments, there's an exchange of unspoken understanding. The officer's hands tremble harder, his fear now magnified by the sudden presence of someone who could change everything in an instant. This isn't just about the chief anymore. It's about power, connections, and the unspoken deals that are often made behind closed doors. The crowd murmurs, the air crackling with uncertainty. The politician strides toward the chief, his steps deliberate and calm, like a man used to being in control. The tension shifts, and the power dynamics in the scene tilt sharply. The chief's face flickers with something hard to place, discomfort, perhaps, or something darker. The officer watches, heart hammering in his chest. He knows that whatever happens now could change the outcome entirely. The woman, still standing in the center of it all, watches the new arrivals with sharp eyes. She feels the shift, senses the stakes rising higher than ever before. This wasn't just an isolated moment of injustice. It was a part of something much bigger. The struggle for what's right, for real accountability, is suddenly more complicated, and she isn't sure who, if anyone, will stand with her this time. The chief pauses for a long, heavy second, glancing between the politician and the officer. Then, just as quickly, he lowers his gaze, his expression hardening. A subtle but unmistakable shift has taken place. Whatever decision he was about to make, The arrival of these powerful figures has changed the game. The officer's future is no longer entirely in the chief's hands. The balance of power is shifting again, and the woman, caught in the center of it all, can only wonder what will happen next. The clock is ticking. Every word from here on out will carry the weight of a decision that could echo far beyond this moment. The atmosphere hangs heavy as the politician approaches, his presence casting a shadow over the scene. The crowd, sensing the shift, holds its breath. The chief stands still, seemingly caught in a moment of hesitation, his face unreadable. The officer's pulse races as the politician's gaze locks onto him, a subtle but unmistakable warning in his eyes. The tension between them is palpable, thick with unspoken threats. The chief remains silent, but his posture betrays the unease he feels. The politician, ever the smooth talker, looks at the woman with an expression that's as cold as it is rehearsed. "Is this really necessary?" he asks, his voice dripping with condescension. "It's just a misunderstanding. Let's not make this bigger than it needs to be." His words, meant to diffuse the situation, only fuel the growing sense of injustice in the crowd. The officer shifts, his hands trembling more violently now. The chief remains quiet for a moment, eyes flicking between the politician and the woman. And then something unexpected happens. Instead of speaking to the officer, or even acknowledging the politician, the chief turns toward the crowd, his voice cutting through the tension with an authority that silences everyone. This woman deserves more than an apology. She deserves accountability. The words hang in the air, a promise of something long overdue. The officer's face pales as the crowd begins to murmur in surprise. But the true shock comes when the chief addresses the officer, his voice low and stern. "You're suspended effective immediately. I'll be initiating a full investigation into your conduct. This behavior is unacceptable." The crowd begins to stir, a collective gasp rising from those who've been waiting for this moment for so long. But then, just as it seems like justice might be served, the politician steps forward, a sleek grin forming on his face. "You don't think this is over, do you?" he says, his tone shifting from smooth to cold. "You may have made a public statement, Chief, but the real power lies with people like me. Don't forget who holds the strings here." The crowd goes still. The politician's words hang heavy in the air, and for a split second, it feels like everything might unravel. But the chief, despite the pressure, stands his ground. "Not anymore," he replies, his voice steady. In that moment, something incredible happens. The crowd, emboldened by the chief's stance, begins to speak out, their voices rising in a wave of support. Phones are raised, recording everything, the truth no longer able to be silenced. The woman, though exhausted and emotionally drained, feels a small spark of victory. The balance of power is shifting, and it's clear that the story doesn't end here. Just as the police begin to escort the officer away, the final twist hits. The politician, his calm facade cracking, makes a sudden move toward the woman, as if to challenge her, to assert his dominance. But before he can take another step, a figure emerges from the crowd. It's a reporter, holding a microphone, her face familiar to some. She steps forward, announcing her presence with certainty, and in that moment, it's clear. She's been documenting everything. Her words pierce the tension. The public's watching, and we have everything on camera. The shockwaves are immediate. The politician freezes, the weight of the cameras now inescapable. His earlier confidence falters, his back straightening in what seems like a desperate attempt to regain control.